So as I said, we are going to talk about this topic of perfectly imperfect, and I hope you have your ears ready because I think this is going to be quite an interesting conversation. The first thing that I want to talk to you about, good evening, Natasha, is the following statement. It's this conversation of the illusion of perfection, the illusion of perfection. Sometimes we allow imperfection to stop us with what we want to do. Now, this is quite common when it comes to basic things, okay? Just the other day, I was working with my youngest son in the garage. We were making a doghouse. We were attempting doing a doghouse. And as we are building this thing, I immediately pick up on the imperfections which takes place, you know? So I know where the screw is not perfectly straight. I know where the plank has not been cut perfectly straight. And for some other reason, Patrick and Vuyo came to visit us, and we were having a conversation, and I wanted to be braggerig to him about what we've just built, you know? But at the one side, I also didn't want to because of all the imperfections. And Patrick being someone that's phenomenal with wood and furniture, he knows his stuff. Okay, hang on. I'm gonna carry on now. Charles, we just want to welcome you tonight. We had almost half the church phoning the police, phoning night shelters. We were almost going to see the police just to find you because we were concerned you haven't signed in. Great to have you with us. Thank you for making it. We're glad to know that you are safe because we need you to come make coffee for us on Sunday again. So thank you so much for signing in. And to come back to my story, as I was showing Patrick the doghouse that we built, immediately I was pointing out these imperfections to him. And he was just laughing at me, and he was laughing, and he said, "Because you know, if I didn't point out these things, it wouldn't have been that obvious. Simply because he's not fully aware on what the final setup must look like, and so because I made him attend on all the imperfections, and he started zooming in. Obviously, he started picking up on this." And here's the thing, and this is what I want to share with you, especially with regards to my youngest son, AJ, as well. You know, if we're always going to focus on the elements of imperfection, sometimes because it's our product, because we made it, because we designed it, because we baked it, because we prepared it, we sometimes kind of just undersell ourselves in the situation, you know? And yes, there will be imperfections, but the imperfections will pop out much more to you who made it than someone else that's coming in as a supportive encouragement, or someone coming in to look at it through fresh eyes, or whatever the case may be. And sometimes we allow imperfections to kind of limit us. But here's the thing. I want you to be, goeienaand Tannie Monica, I want you to be aware that perfection in many cases is an illusion when it comes to us. Now, goeienaand Tannie Mariette. Maybe this is a little bit of a secret, but I hate it when people look at my sermon notes. I hate it. The reason why I hate when people look at my sermon notes is because on how imperfect it is. Now remember, when I stand up and when I'm preparing or whatever the case may be, you guys only get to see this picture, right? But if I had to turn this camera around, there is wires, there is sponges, books, my wallet is lying here. You don't know what the table look like. You don't even know what the bottom half of my body looks like. I can sit in pajama pants. I'm not, but I mean, oh, well, you wouldn't know, but I can even be sitting in pajama pants, you know. But what I'm trying to explain to you is this illusion of perfection, okay? And sometimes we allow our imperfections to limit us, and we use them as an excuse to say, listen, I can't do this, I can't do that, I'm not good enough like this, I won't have this straight enough, I can't bake well. But you are underselling yourself because you are overly focused on the imperfections. You are overly focused on the imperfections. And if you are going to wait for something to be perfect, you are never going to start. You are never going to start. I used this example the other day in church, and people thought it was funny. Well, I didn't, but they thought it was funny. Now, I had a puncture in the bucky, and I wanted to fix it myself. Ye- Yes, I wanted to. I wanted to because it's gonna be cheaper. It's gonna no. I don't know if. Sorry, my mom is saying. I don't know. Like, I'm gonna show you jeans. I'm wearing jeans, not pajamas. Okay. Um, and as I was busy getting the stuff to try and fix the tire, something that would have taken someone else 15 minutes to do took me 2 trips to the petrol station and 3 Voltarens over the next 3 days because my body was so sore. Yeah, trying to fix one little screw in the tire. But the point being is, after going through that struggle, I have a better understanding on how to do that now. So I am much more confident in doing elements like that now because I have a little bit of experience. But if you wait for perfection, it's never going to happen. When it comes to baking, when it comes to cooking, any skill-based element, you can never expect to be perfect before you start. Then you are never going to start. Your business aren't always going to be perfect. Your thesis aren't always going to be perfect, but you need to start somewhere, and refinement is going to be a process. Experience is going to be a process. Growth is going to be a process, but you need to start somewhere. So this is why I'm saying that perfection is an illusion, and it doesn't mean things can't be perfect. It just means when you're going to start, you are fooling yourself to say that things are going to be perfect. And then the other side of the coin is also true. Because we know things aren't going to be perfect, we're not going to start. But then how are you going to grow if you're never going to do that? And so listen carefully. And I know we're talking about tires and pants and nonsense like that, but I want you to understand the depth of what I'm telling you. You are breaking yourself down. You are giving up even before the battle started. You are limiting your own potential within God's kingdom, within your workplace. Why? Because it's not going to be perfect enough. Obviously, it's not going to be perfect enough. But you need the feedback, you need the information, you need the conversations. You need to fail sometimes, and then you need someone that you can trust that can tell you where you can sharpen things. And then you need to try again, and then you need to try again. So don't be intimidated by this idea of perfection. And here's the best part of it all. A baker who's been baking cake for 10 years will most definitely, without a doubt, be able to bake my daughter a better looking cake. Without a doubt. But you will know who will bake the best cake for my daughter, myself. It's going to come out crooked. It's going to look wonky. There will be weird colored sprinkles on because that's the only stuff that we have in our cupboard. But the point being is that imperfection still has value because there's relationship. Because I'm showing, I'm laughing because that's my opinion of the cake, But I'm hoping that with my daughter that she will see that I'm putting in effort, and the imperfection becomes perfection because it's time, it's love, it's energy, it's commitment, it's value. I'm giving her something unique to what just I can bake. I promise you, you're not going to buy that cake anywhere in the world, okay? But perfection and imperfection, don't be overly driven by these two. We need to strive for perfection, but don't let imperfection be the lack. And here's the reason why I'm quickly going to share this with you. We only have 10 slides for this evening. Is that God used imperfect leaders. God used imperfect leaders regularly. Okay? Almost all his leaders were imperfect. But yet, the process started somewhere. Yet, God chose them in any case. So I want you to understand these points. Now, again, we're talking about leadership, but you can draw this in your relationships. You can draw this through to your spiritual walk with God. You can draw this through when it comes to your workplace. It's conversations that I need you to be aware of. Listen to this idea of leadership. Leadership is not about perfection. It's about authenticity and obedience. Authenticity and obedience. That's going to be two things. And I mean, we can talk along about obedience. I'm just going to skip that one just for time's sake, but I want to talk about authenticity. Sometimes when you listen to these life coaches and motivational speakers and something, sometimes this conversation will pop up. I can't recall the author, so please excuse me. I'm not trying to steal someone's content. I just know this is not a spiritual guy. Or in my perspective, this is a guy who focuses on health, and he was having this discussion on one of the most strongest emotions and powers that you can have in your life is being authentic. And from his perspective, something special happens when you say words that you actually mean. There's just a connection between two people when words are expressed and you mean what you say, and it comes through with a form of authenticity. Then sometimes perfection is not really the goal. The idea is having a real conversation, which becomes more valuable than entertainment many times. And so this whole idea of being perfect, man, perfection is going to happen later on. Okay, it's not going to happen now. God calls you when you are imperfect, and He walks a journey with you. And you need to be aware of that. And how many things in your life have you stopped? Have you said no to? Have you shied away from because you feel imperfect? How many damages has been caused because you feel imperfect? How many lack of results have happened in your life just because of your idea of perfection? And so I'm going to say this again. You lose even before you started. You lose before any fight has broken out. You lose by default right there and then. So I want to draw you through to this idea. Forget about this concept of imperfection, okay? Think about this idea of authenticity and obedience. Think of this idea of starting somewhere. Think of imperfection as this conversation of brave enough to try something and fail and try again. Courageous enough to persevere through a process where you aren't going to be the best. Maybe we should have a conversation about checking your ego. And if this sounds offensive to you, this is relevant to me as well. Is it possible that our self-image comes in the way because we don't want to look like a fool? Man, if you want to see my cake, I'm going to be a fool without a doubt. If you want to see me run 100 meters, I'm going to look like a fool, okay? Without any bit of doubt in my mind. If you want to see my doghouse, Patrick was way too nice, okay? If you want to see the doghouse that I built, it's not going to be perfect. But if my ego's in the way, I would have never stepped into that garage with my son and spent time with him and building something from scratch with old wood just to do something. Well, he thinks it's fun. I think it's torture, but just do something. I would have never had that moment where I can spend with him because perfection would have come in the way. I would have never baked my daughter a cake because my ego would have been in the way of it's not going to be perfect, so I can't give it to her. You are wasting opportunity. You are wasting connection. You are wasting relationship because of this ego. You guys seem a little bit quiet. Again, my intentions is not to come across as insulting or offensive or anything like that. On the contrary, I'm trying to tell you that you are imperfect, but it's perfect. I don't know how to say that any better. I know it's so contradicting to each other, but that's exactly what it is. The imperfection of the cake was perfect. The imperfection of the way we built something and how skew the planks came out, it was perfect. Why? Because I spent time with my son. And it was phenomenal. Well, not the product, but the moment was phenomenal. My daughter faked it. She sliced her cake. She was happy. She ate it. And we had a fun time. And my mother-in-law mocked my design. Okay. Hello, Ma. So you need to understand that you are limiting potential because you aren't starting because you are waiting for perfection. I want to just throw a curveball in here, and I want to make the statement that we need to learn how to use our imperfection for growth instead of stagnation. Can I read this one more time? We need to learn how to use our imperfection for growth instead of stagnation. Imperfection is going to happen, without a doubt. But you can choose whether you will allow your imperfection to cause you to withdraw, or you can use your imperfection to cause you to lean in. When I started ministering, and had the privilege, man, you can ask my parent, okay, my mom, with regards to this, and the conversation was about that. Man, I never really wanted to be behind the pulpit. I never, and there's still occasions where I don't feel good enough in a certain sense of the word. And I don't think anyone is good enough, but I'm talking about skill set, right? I'm not talking about our standing before God and His grace. I'm just talking about standing before people and presenting something of value. I'm having that conversation, And as I started out, it was just like, man, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it. It's that sense of this is not good. And obviously, I'm comparing myself to my dad who's been ministering for years. My mom has been ministering for years, and I'm starting out. I'm just learning how to find my keys as an adult, right? That's probably the most difficult thing for me as an adult, is knowing where my keys are the whole time. And now I'm ministering, and you know what the idea was? In that imperfections, I made it a goal to improve in those areas. I started studying, and I'm not talking about theology. I started looking at mentors. I started looking at top speakers that's out there, that's publicly out there. I'm studying them. I'm listening to how they communicate. I'm checking out where they make jokes, where they pause. I'm looking at the way they present their information. I'm reading books on public speaking. I went so far to read books on memory as well, because I always wanted to minister without any notes in front of me, and I had to put in that effort in order to get it. And still at this point, with all the work, I still don't achieve somewhat of a level of perfection. But there's massive improvement in comparison to 13, 14 years when I started out. There's a difference. Why? Because I used the imperfections to improve on, and I did not cause my imperfections as an excuse to stagnate. This is not a conversation about me. I'm trying to use some relatable examples to you, because there are things in your life that you can do, but you choose not to do it, or you choose not to improve it. There's hobbies you have that you can actually be good in, but you just don't feel good enough in that. There are people that you can make a difference in your life, but you feel it's imperfection causing you to withdraw. Then I want to encourage you to use your imperfection for growth instead of using it as excuse for stagnation. And here's the bottom line of this. It's in your hands. It's in your hands. You make the decision. So this is the good and the bad. The good and the bad is this is not something that can be forced on you. This is not an idea or mindset that can come from the outside. This is something that you need to choose on the inside. This is something that you need to choose to say, listen here, I'm going to start baking irrespective of what the cake comes out like. And again, please, don't miss it. I tend to oversimplify a conversation just to make it practical. But please, I'm not just referring to cake here, ladies and gentlemen. I'm talking to you about your calling as well. I hope you are picking. Maybe I'm just under explaining this part. Let me just take a moment here. Your calling as well. Because of your imperfections, I want you to start somewhere. I want you to see a leader. I want you to see a mentor. I want you to start somewhere. You had a dream. You had a desire. You started studying. Maybe you stopped. Maybe you thought about starting a connect group, or you maybe thought about, maybe you've been called to minister, but you just kind of stopped. You just kind of left it there. And you just started attending. You just started fading into the background. I want to encourage you to work on it, to build it, to mold it, to have conversations. Do not allow your imperfections to stagnate you, but use it and improve on those areas so that you can move forward. Now, as we're going to conclude this last session for this term, as we're going to take a little bit of a break, I want to refer to you to some information that a pastor shared. It's Pastor Craig Rochelle, so I just want to put a disclaimer over here. This is not my content. I'm not the owner of this information. So please, I want to just strongly encourage you. If anything I'm sharing is very interesting to you, go check out Pastor Craig Grushell. He's got multiple books out as well. I mean, many of us use the Bible app. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's his church that kind of started this whole thing. So he's really a phenomenal guy, and his specialty is within leadership. So I'm going to leave a couple of things with you, and don't lose interest in this conversation, because remember, everything I'm going to speak to you about now is not only valuable in your spiritual life, it's not only valuable in your calling, it's also valuable in the workplace and in the marketplace. So these things can actually improve your career chances as well as it adds value to your calling. So we're just going to go through a couple of these ones, and it's not going to be a lot. This is going to be like 5 or 4. So I'm going to talk about Pastor Craig Grushell's tips on leadership. And the first thing that he talks about is embrace vulnerability. Embrace being vulnerable. I have to say that in syllables, otherwise it comes out wrong. I want you to understand this. Every leader is vulnerable. We all have lacks. And here's the thing. I need you to listen very carefully to me. Every leader will have weak points. Every leader, your boss, your manager, your father, your mother, your pastor, your connect group leader, we all have lack. You want to know why? Let me explain to you simply why. Because God created us to do things together. God created us to function together as a team, as a community, doing things together. And so the areas where I am weak in, I need a team member that can be strong in that area. I need someone that is better than me in other areas to handle those areas. You need to understand that if you want to be a big, phenomenal leader, if you want to move forward, you need to embrace your vulnerability. In other words, you're going to have areas that are not going to be strong. And here's the best part of it all. It's okay, because you are perfectly imperfect. You just need to be aware of these points, and you need to build and mold around that. Stop trying to be a one-man show. Stop trying to have things in order. Some people are going to be better in admin than you are. Some people are going to be better in public speaking than you are. Some people are going to be more creative than you are. And it's a fool who wants to be the best in everything. What a limit. What a downplay on the effectiveness of a group. Now, even a leader has a specific assignment, and he needs to stick in his lane. And part of that is having a conversation of their vulnerability. To understand that they too, any leader, us, each one of us, we also have flaws. We also make bad judgment calls. Sometimes we don't see clearly enough. Sometimes we do things in a rush. Sometimes we get angry, you know? And you need to be self-aware of those elements, because that's going to be always the first sign of being able to move forward. Be aware that you aren't as good as you think you are. And this is me as well, okay? So when we embrace vulnerability, it makes you open to discussions about teamwork. And that is where leadership shines. The ability to gather people around them, to have a strong team, and use each one's strength to kind of cover up each one's weakness and working together. If you want to become a next level leader, if you want to take a next step in your leadership, be aware of your weak points. Be aware on the areas where you are not good in and not strong in. And then if you're a leader of a team, then you look for people who complements those weaknesses and covers them up, because it becomes their strength. Man, that team is unbeatable when it comes to that element. And this vulnerability leads me to the second point, which Pastor Craig Grushell points out. And he points out you need to lead with humility. Lead with humility. When you realize you are vulnerable, humility will it's supposed to automatically assign. Sometimes when people are vulnerable, they become more arrogant. They become more defensive. And it's just a coping mechanism, and we all have these things in our lives. But if you want to become a phenomenal leader, just apply the principle of being humble to your life. It will do wonders to your role in a team, to your role in your company. And if you are a leader, it will change the dynamic on how people engage with you, because there's a level of trust in humility. There's this conversation of, remember what we started off, there's this conversation of authenticity when it comes to these points of humility. And the next point that Pastor Craig Crushell points out is kind of this whole theme that we are talking about tonight, and that's focus on progress and not perfection. Focus on progress and not perfection. And that conversation is so difficult. Well, at least for me, I have expectations. I want us to be at a certain place. I want our church to look a certain way. I want our vision to be implemented by a certain time. I want our the look, the visuals, the attendance, the quality of our leadership. I've got all these plans. But the frustration of a leader is you see something, but you don't always get to live in that vision, because you've seen the vision, you've seen the potential, but now you need to walk slowly to that potential. And sometimes we tend to give up because we have this idea of perfection. We never get to that point because we are not willing to take small incremental wins. So it's that type of conversation. If we can't get this vision, it's not worth doing. Well, Pastor Craig Roussel shares the following, and vision is important, don't get me wrong, but we need to focus on this idea of progressing towards the perfection. Instead of having perfection as the thing that we want immediately, that is the goal, that's the vision, that's where we're moving to. But we need to focus on progress. In other words, what can I do today to improve things for me? What can I do tomorrow to improve things for me? For some of you, that will begin by having a conversation with your manager. Just asking them, just explaining to them, listen here, this is where you want to be. This is what you want to achieve. Can they assist you? What do you need to put in place to become such a leader, to become such a force in the marketplace? When it comes to your spiritual life, you have pastors, you have connect group leaders that's surround or supposed to surround you, where you can have conversations and you open up your heart and say, man, I've got this vision. Can you help me progress? What are those things that I can do now to make a difference? What can I do today to become better tomorrow? For some of us, that means that pack of knickknacks is not going to come out the cupboard this evening. But, it's just something I want to mention. Something that's vital, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but character. You need to develop your character. This is obvious. And the sad thing about what I'm sharing with you tonight is that it's not hidden information. It's not a secret. We know everything on this list. Our challenge is in our application. Our challenge is in our discipline. And sometimes, many times, most times, it's not a lack of information. It's a lack of application where we suffer. And this is true for me as well, You want to become a good manager. You want to become a good business owner. You want to become a good pastor. You want to become a good Christian. Work on your character. Last two slides. Vision. I quickly touched on that as I spoke to you earlier, so I'm not going to expand on that so much. But this is just an obvious point of leadership. This is just an obvious point of growth. You need to have a plan. You need to have a goal. You need to have a vision. You need to have a dream where you're building to. And the last one that I want to close off with is the word courage. I want you to take that step of faith and be courageous in your vision. Take courage and do your best to pursue your vision. It's scary. Imperfection is scary because people will have an opinion. People will complain. People will argue. It doesn't matter in what area of influence you are. If we have conversation about our church, about changing things, it's scary because you never know what the feedback will be. Changing the church around, painting the church a color, changing structures, adding services, removing services, the type of communion we use, where we use our communion, the loudness of our sound, the choices of our music. all these things, it's layers and layers and layers of decisions that carries risk, because everyone will be affected differently by these things. And it becomes a heavy burden for leadership. But I want to encourage you. I want you to take courage. Don't be paralyzed by fear. I want you to take courage in this concept. You are going to make imperfect decisions, but use them for growth. At the very least, have the courage to at least try. And I'm going to come back to that example that I used in the beginning. At least try to bake that cake. At least try to change that tire. At least try to read that book. At least try and set up a presentation. At least have that courage to try, and then open your heart for feedback from the right people around you, so that you can use that for growth. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been, again, such a tremendous privilege to be with you this term, as we've been going through this live stream now for 8-9 weeks in a row now. We are going to take a short little break for about maybe three weeks. I just want to encourage you, if you are not following us on our social media, we're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, to make sure that you are subscribed and following us and liking the pages, so that you can be updated with the information. So as soon as we're going to be back again, when the school opens again, we will send out some notifications on our Facebook page, so you will see when we are going to be live stream again. But it's always a tremendous pleasure for me to be able to share the word, and I sincerely hope that as we've been sharing this, that it's been a blessing to you. The last thing that I want to do is just consume time. What we want to do, and when I say we, I'm talking about there's an entire team that's making this possible. It's not just me. There are people behind the scenes helping, from designing to set up and writing the content, and just a whole bunch of things. And if there's the last thing that we want to do as a team is just consume time. We want to present stuff to you that can make a difference in your life, that can edify you, that can lift your spirit, that can encourage you to hold on to God, to take a step closer. And added to that, we hope that the information that we're sharing is also making a difference in your families and in your workplace. I mean, we love the word. We love worshiping and following God. And we just hope that as we're sharing this information, that you can see the truth in these and apply that to your life and really experience the tangible difference that it can make. It's been an utmost pleasure. And my prayer is that, many people are working, but for parents that are trying to take it a little bit slow and kids are going to be home, I mean, that's a whole bunch of other work for you as well. But as we're going to go into this time of not being online, I don't want to call it a time of rest, but a time of not being online. We are really going to miss you guys. We're going to miss doing this, but we will be back soon. And then added to that, you guys can still follow us on our socials. So, for example, our sermons will still be streamed live on a Sunday morning, and then we will be posting those things to a YouTube channel as well. So there's more than enough content for you to work through as well if you want to do that. But let me conclude. Thank you so much for everyone that's been here. Thank you to the team behind the scenes. I mean, I appreciate everything that you guys do, and it's just a tremendous privilege, such a privilege to be part of this community. We're going to end off in prayer, and then I'm going to greet everyone. Let's pray together. Father, what a beautiful opportunity to celebrate your goodness that we have this evening, Father. Thank you for your faithfulness. Thank you for the blessings that we can enjoy. Thank you for our church. Thank you for everyone that's signing in. Father, my prayer is that as we progress and journey through life, that we won't allow our imperfections to cause stagnation, Father. We know from so many examples in the Word that you use so many imperfect leaders, and you shape them and you mold them, and you use them to make a difference, Father. So, Father, tonight, to each one that's listening, I pray for a heart of courage, that they would step out and make that difference, Father. Step out and start that journey. Step out and begin somewhere, Father. My prayer is that they won't be paralyzed with fear, Father, but they would have the courage to take their imperfections and use it to cause growth in their life, Father. Thank you for your faithfulness. Thank you for your goodness. Our hearts belong to you. We pray that in Jesus' name. And together we say, amen and amen. Thank you, everyone. You guys must have a wonderful, wonderful evening. It's evening. And if you guys are in the area, we want to invite you to join us on Sunday. We just finished a fantastic series about pixelated purpose. This Sunday, we're going to carry on with the scribes before the scrolls. We're going to talk about Daniel, some phenomenal stuff in there. I look forward to be able to carry on teaching on that book as well. So you guys are more than welcome to join us in person at 9. And if you guys are going to be online, it's going to be at around 9:30. Thank you for being here. Have a blessed evening. We're going to see you guys next time. Goodbye.